I was so bored before. The last thing I need is the added stress of printing family photos. Fortunately, I use Chatbooks, the app that automatically turns my Instagram photos into adorable photo books. Think about all those photos you've already posted to your Instagram account. That's a whole collection of Chatbooks waiting to happen. Just connect to your account, review, and order. Holy sweet Meghan Markle, it worked! Chatbooks. Live your life and let Chatbooks print it, one $10 book at a time.
Today we're joined by Colin Crotty, who is the president and CEO of Hyperquake. How are you?
Good, Garrett. How are you?
I'm very good. So you are coming from outside the state of Utah, virtually.
Yeah.
The Queen City, which is Cincinnati, right?
Yeah, we have offices in Cincinnati, and I make my home just north of downtown, about 36 miles. So it's been a great place for us since about 1986. It's awesome.
I have some other questions about Cincinnati we'll get to, but let's just jump into what is Hyperquake.
Sure. You know, we're a strategic firm first and foremost. We've been doing this, like I just mentioned, since 1986. We focus, most of our attention is on storytelling and sort of bridging the gap that exists between, what people want out of their business or want out of their brand and how we sort of shore that up. That's sort of been our shtick for quite some time. So very who focused. But at the end of the day, we spend most of our time helping other leaders figure out how to bridge that gap. And that gap is, the world that they want that they aspire to associate themselves with versus a reality of what their businesses face today. And that seems to be where we spend most of our time.
Cool. So you were a very, very young person in 1986. I assume not working for Hyperquake. But what led you to be the president and CEO of Hyperquake?
Well, look, I'm going to tell you right now, my headstone isn't going to read was CEO and president of Hyperquake. I got here by accident. It was completely by mistake. My background is not in the agency space. I came from a long line of industrial launderers. I had a family business that sold to Cintas in February of 2006. An introduction was made to me at that time, shortly after the family business sold, to the founders of Hyperquake. And I joined Hyperquake October 23rd, 2006. So I've been here ever since. We've gone through a lot of change. Most of it has been really fun and exciting. There have been some times, as you well aware, everything that's gone on this year, but I look back 2008, 2010, we went through quite a bit of change as well. But yeah, I found my way here by accident. Didn't have really any traditional branding or marketing experience leading up to that point. But when I walked through the door, I just fell in love with it. Garrett, I was like, I didn't know that people actually did this for a living. And this is where I want to basically plant myself. And, like I said before, it just sort of grew into something that I never thought it would become, quite honestly. And so as the years went by, I fell more in love with the clients and the people and the work we do. So here I am.
Yeah. So big gap there between laundering, which has to happen, right?
Absolutely.
And the cool kids working in agencies that are always seem to be a little bit hip.
Yeah, it took me a while. I'm still not there, but I'm trying.
Yeah. All right. So 14 years kind of with Hyperquake and obviously a lot of technical innovations there and a lot of stuff that didn't exist that now does that you have to factor into building a brand. What's the hardest part of running an agency?
I think we pride ourselves in our ability to sort of to bridge the gap. I said this before, bridge the gap between what businesses, organizations, what have you, what they want out of life. And I say that, and I mean that, because most of the folks that we serve are people that are visionary leaders, and they're trying to bridge a gap between what the reality is today and their responsibility to make that traction towards where they want to go. For us, we sort of go by the way of the human psyche, right? So we're always trying to figure out, what the biggest competitive threat is to the clients we serve and how we really galvanize leaders' vision against that future state. and then how we pull people, their organizations towards it, which is one heck of a challenge. So I would say the biggest challenge is us sort of outpacing what we think, or what we think a specific market where it might end up, because we're pretty diverse. We work across all different types of organizations. So for us, I wouldn't say it's the clients. I wouldn't say it's the people. I would say it's our own ability to get out of our own way and then really have a good sense for what's to come, and then how the organizations we serve should adapt to that.
All right. Yeah, that's interesting. So give us an example of maybe a client journey. They find you through the website, for example, or at a networking event. How do the initial phases go, the onboarding, and then how do you ultimately fulfill what you guys promised to do?
Yeah, and that's the question. So we love to tell our clients we sell two things. We sell results and an experience. And when we work on in two different types of clients. I like to categorize them as churched or unchurched. Those that have a high degree of understanding of branding and marketing, and those that have a low degree, but they both come to us because they know that we're there to help them deliver results or drive an experience, because a lot of the folks we serve don't have those functions inside their walls. So we sort of work as that catalyst towards that next step in their own evolutionary process. So I'll start with B2B first. It's a company you've probably never, ever heard of, which is called P&R Communications. I call it small. It's probably less than a $30 million organization that's located just south of Columbus, Ohio. And they're going through a pretty big generational shift from they've been around for probably 35 years. And as they've shifted ownership, our responsibility has been to basically give those guys a stronger sense and a stronger understanding of what the world wants for the industry they play in. They play in the telecommunications industry, and they sell their products to EMTs, first responders, different legislative branches of the state. And so they made their mark on their ability to sell two-way communication. So today the work we're doing is to help create a stronger connection to the future prospects of growth, but then getting their entire team around everything that's important to that organization culturally, so as they shift into this new leadership style. And so we use branding as just one tool in our toolkit. They looked at a lot of different potential partners. A lot of them were more consultative in nature. So, the whole idea of bringing in a consultant to basically figure out where the gaps are in their organization, and then saying, here are all your gaps, good luck, go fix it. We came in and said, hey, look, here's where the opportunities are. Here are some potential gaps. Let's walk alongside your team. Let's build that bridge to the future together, which drives a lot more advocacy for the leadership's team. We use branding as a tool to do that. Look, creating stuff that's physical and visual in nature is a really powerful thing. And so our ability to basically bridge that gap from where they were to where they want to go, and using design to execute against that, has just been huge. They're a small company. They're just in the state of Ohio. But again, just a great example of how we use branding to help start to drive towards that future state. And then most importantly, that becomes the platform for new product diversification, new service ideation, and how they better serve their customers. So our ability to basically move people to move product falls in line with, number one, the people inside your walls, getting them to believe in that. And then number two, bridging that with what their customers say they want today and what they think they're going to want tomorrow. And we use branding to do that. That's one example of that.
Awesome. So how long does it take for you and your team to feel comfortable with the strategy going forward of all of the services you provide? Because you've got to obviously understand their psyche, their business model, the competitors, all of that. What's the timeline?
That's a great question. Here's our deal. We love to start small. Like we're never in a position where we want to walk in and compete with other firms and ask for all of their business. Our belief is, let's start small. Let's figure out if the cadence is going to work. Let's find out if we're the right fit first. So for us, we try to have work in sprints. I would call in sort of like micro doses with projects to basically start to better understand, if what we're going to deploy, if we have a pretty big toolkit, like we want to make sure, number one, there's a strong enough connection with those other leaders where they see real value in what we do, and then they can in turn monetize the work that we do. And that's anywhere from a 2 to 3 week sprint. We do business building workshops. We try to just strip away all the nomenclature around brand and consumer focused and what that means, and just get down to the basic core principles of what it is that they deliver to the world. And typically that's anywhere from like I said, a 2 to 4 week business building workshop. So we start to align on, okay, principally speaking, we think we add value. Do you believe we add value? Now let's really understand, let's get a better sense for that business strategy and where you want to go, and then how we can drop in our services to help you get there. And we do that, we reverse engineer the conversation. So when we talk to our customers, we say, hey, what's a success look like? You could pick up the phone and talk to any one of our customers, and they would tell you, we beat it into their head. We have one client who sort of called me to the carpet on it in a planning meeting the other day. His name is George, and he looked at me and said, I knew you were going to ask me that question. And the reason I asked that question was I want to know if something's changed since the last time we met. But we want to start in reverse and understand 12 months from now, what does success look like for the business, and what does success look like for you on a personal level? Once we have that, in those first 2 to 4 weeks in that business building exercise, then we can start to plot and bring some of our other services to them to basically figure out what the next 3 to 6 months look like. Typically, an engagement on a project level is typically no more than 6 months, but we never like to prescribe some sort of solution where it's a 6-month run rate right away. We want to spend the first couple of weeks trying to figure out if it's the right fit first. We think that's crucial.
Gotcha. And so you guys have smaller clients as well as some Fortune 100 clients. What's the difference in your guys' approach to those?
Not much. Quite honestly, not much. I would like to tell you that, we have some silver bullet that basically we use for big clients versus small. Look, at the end of the day, if we say it's all about moving people, it's about making strong connections. Look, nostalgia is coming back. The art of customer service is coming back. People want to be heard. People, we look at it quite honestly, and I'm going to say it. We want to make our customers the heroes in their story for the organizations or the people they serve. And our ability to tap into that and understand that, it doesn't matter if you're a $5 million company or a $5 billion company. We work across all sides. It's the same thing. People will come to us and they'll enter into an engagement with us because we're going to focus on the business planning. Other clients pick us up because they want to work on, productization or, deliver a best-in-class online experience. Both are fine, but at the end of the day, those people that are making those decisions, our job is to basically propel them and their trajectory for that project to make sure that they get the ROI they need. And it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter if you're a $5 billion company or a $500,000 company. We really take the same approach, and it's mostly about the relationships and understanding what they need to get out of it.
Okay, cool. So we've talked about a couple of the things that are tenets on your website: brand building, business building, and storytelling. Of the last year or two, what's one of your favorite stories and clients that's encapsulated all three of those?
There's a few. I would say, man, there are a couple that have been new that we're working on that are going to be really exciting because of the subject matter. But I would say probably Mastercraft Boat Holdings has just been an absolute blast. They have 4 brands: Aviara, Crest, Nautic Star, and of course Mastercraft. That's been fun. They've had a shift at the top. We were able to come in and just sort of help them navigate some of the internal conversations, and then work into and downstream into our brand building path. And it's been real exciting. I mean, you talk about a brand, at least in their space, that has very high brand recognition. And then even outside that space, most people know or have heard of Mastercraft and they know what it is. So that category on a personal level is very fun and it's very exciting to me in terms of our ability to help them expand their reach and drive better results for their business. So we feel like, we're a great fit for that partnership. That's been really fun. There's a list of other clients as well I could talk about on the story building side. Teradata in San Diego. There's a rich history, the origin story of Teradata and where it sat locally just north of Cincinnati for years. So for us to lean in and to help them launch their vision and have it physically represent itself in space has been real exciting. And when we entered into those conversations, it's all about mapping out their story and where they want to go in that story arc, and then determining, how we can sort of bolt on to help them get there. Those have been two really, really exciting opportunities we've had as of late for those two pillars specifically.
Yeah. So you guys offer a lot of services, right? It's a fairly big list.
Yeah.
How do you, how does a service make it on the list? And then how do you assure that there's no orphan services that kind of get forgotten? And if somebody wants that service, you don't have the right team to implement it.
Well, to be straight up, Garrett, I've been trying to figure that out for a long time. And, I think we don't want to be everything to everybody. I think our team members, we have great tenure with our team. And so we have a lot of experience, and a lot of our team members have come from the client side. And so our ability to basically be strategic in nature and provide more of a consultative approach first allows us to sort of carve out these paths. And, for us, we have a really strong codependent model. We're not afraid if there's something that we've itemized as a service, but we're not best in class in, we're not going to do it. We're going to find a partner and bring them to the table. The new model, I think, for firms like Hyperquake is to recognize where your weaknesses are, celebrate your strengths. That's obvious. Celebrate your strengths, and our three pillars, our three lenses, as we call them: story building, brand building, and business building, speak to the core of what our strengths are. But look, like, it's not beyond us to go out and find other firms that can complement us to extend that story. And the big model is, we're being privately held, and being an independent has its advantages. And we want to be able to cast a wide enough net that people understand, okay, there's nothing that these guys haven't come across that they can't handle, but it doesn't mean we're going to see that all the way through. We're going to set the table, have the conversations. And a lot of times our bigger clients, they bring other suppliers to the table that they have great relationships with. So we want to basically showcase our ability to understand the importance of what those partners bring. I think you'll see that list start to get a little bit smaller as we become a little bit more specific in terms of what we want to do from a pure business building standpoint, and then how we use brand building and story building to complement that. But yeah, it's when you have a team of over 50 people and you're independent, you need to be flexible, you need to be agile, you need to be able to sprint. And so we think that, the list of services allows us to roll into almost any industry and be very formidable and have this SWAT team mentality to basically make quick work of whatever the challenge might be.
Yeah. So it kind of all boils down, at least from my conversations with you and, looking at your website, how do you move people, right?
Yep.
And that's the answer you're trying to get with these clients. So just in your brain, without, talking to your team or doing any research, if you had a client, with $1 million ready to give to you with the question of how do you move people, for me, how does your brain quickly process that?
That's a good question. So how I quickly process that is, I would say, we're in the middle of a pretty big shift. Very rarely do you see a lot of contributing factors in an economic shift the way you're seeing it now, whether that be social, political, economical. Understanding that shift and how that impacts different generations. So if you go to the greatest generation ever, to millennials, to Gen X, to Gen Y, trying to understand what their values are. That's the most important work any business can do, is to understand how people make decisions is based on how they're influenced in order to make those decisions. So I would say, look, the most important thing that a business can do right now is invest in their understanding of humans and how people make choices. Because guess what? The next generation of leadership is upon us. And we're going to see a shift as boomers exit the workforce, Gen X and Gen Y, so Gen X steps in, millennials right behind. How they make decisions in their life carries into their professional world too. And so I would say, look, understand the top 10 values by generation, understand the differences and also understand the connectivity. Like family, for example, right? Right now, we run some analysis with our customers and our suppliers to understand, hey, what sort of happened since COVID? How have their values changed? How important is family, right? So has family moved up or down or out? Financial security, has that moved up, down, or out? What does that look like? And so we try to cross over and try to understand where those connections are with top 10 values so we can start to action our behaviors, our customers' behaviors against those generational shifts, because the people right now that are running most of our customers, with the exception of, I use P&R as an example, P&R communication, they've embraced that, hey, like the next generation of leadership is upon us. They're going to be more relatable to our clients in the next 2 to 3 years. So for me, I think that work that you do in understanding the generational shifts is crucial right now. So businesses are more equipped by this time next year to act against that.
Yeah. So if you had one generation from the greatest generation to, what is it, Z?
I think so, Z. Yeah.
And in between, which one's the easiest right now to move people?
Well, I would say, look, I'm not gonna date you, Garrett. I'm 43 years old, so if I walk into a room and I'm talking to Gen Xers, there's a lot of relatability there. But make no mistake about it, when you talk about where the wealth's held in this company and the shift that's happening, it's going from it's sort of skipping over people like me, and then it's going straight to millennials. And so you're seeing that boomer shift, right? We're sort of those middle managers that maybe just didn't make it up because you've got that older generation holding those roles, and then you've got millennials popping up, and you're seeing that transfer. So I would say, look, the relatability is right in the middle for me. But I would say, we've got a team of well over 50 people. Most of those folks are millennials. So I have a very strong understanding, or we have a very strong understanding of what some of those triggers are and what it takes to manifest sort of movement and executional activity to drive business success. But I would say the most important generation right now is, I would say, I'm going to answer your question, but not answer it, but it's the connection between the millennial generation and the boomers and sort of what that means to the future success of the organizations we're involved with. But relatability, by far, Gen X, that's where I fall.
Gotcha. Yeah, I guess the most important in the present would be the ones with the most money, which is probably the boomers. And then to your point, planning ahead and trying to forecast the future would be everybody else.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, most folks that run agencies and are on the creative side have a dream client. Who would yours be?
Man, I don't know if I can. I don't really have a dream client. I have a dream client type: purpose-driven organizations. I think organizations that come to us and they already have that purpose defined. And I'm not talking about someone who's, when I define purpose is defined by whatever that organization thinks their purpose should be. But I would say more purpose-driven for the sake of positive change is good, especially right now. So our ability to work with more purpose-driven organizations is absolutely crucial. I'll use, we were recently awarded a piece of work that I can't go public with, but they it's an automotive manufacturer, and it's a really nice win for our roster. But the work that we're doing is so forward focused. They're 15 to 20 years down the road, thinking about what growth looks like. That was my dream client, and our team won them. I didn't even talk to them, and our team won that work. So right now, I would say those purpose-driven organizations that are, focused on driving good communication awareness around the importance of understanding the political landscape, or understanding the social landscape, or the environmental landscape, and what that means to us, and what that means to the world and the next generation is crucial. So I would say purpose-driven organizations that understand that, but still have a strong advocacy for nostalgia and the importance of doing things the right way. Those are the organizations we want to work with. I couldn't pick just one. Do I have my list of companies that I would love to work with? Sure, absolutely. But I couldn't pick just one. I would say those companies that have strong visionary leaders that are purpose-driven are the types of folks that we want to work with.
Gotcha. Yeah, you're better than I would be at that. Like if I don't do a lot of boating, but if Mastercraft if I did and Mastercraft was a client, then selfishly you could test and
Yeah.
validate your theses and stuff like that. Because I'm sure you've got, team members that love certain brands and would die to have them
Oh,
on their account.
absolutely. I mean, there's lists. On a personal level, I'll use the analogy back to Mastercraft. The reason we're talking to you is we see so much potential in the Salt Lake area. We have a lot of work on the West Coast. There is so much activity going on right now in Salt Lake. It gets us really excited. And I felt that way for years. I have siblings in Salt Lake. First time I ever went to Salt Lake was in 1996 and fell in love with the mountains. And so, you could sort of like go down the list and say, okay, who do we want to work with? You could take a company, you could take a ski resort like Deer Valley, who's part of a larger group. Yeah, we would love to work with an organization like that. They're paying very close attention to the environment, what that means to their industry. Obviously, that's someone we would love to work with. And I would say our entire team thinks that way too. So I would say, even to get a little bit more granular, our ability to basically grow on the West Coast is important, but really getting roots down in the Salt Lake area is going to be real important for us on a personal level because of the family connection I have, but just based on what we're seeing, the trajectory for growth for Salt Lake is over the next 10 to 15 years is really exciting.
Yeah. So folks here in Utah probably will be able to solicit your services in the near future, it sounds like.
We're hoping so. Yeah, we're going to plant a flag there, and we're really excited about that. And that should happen first quarter next year.
Cool. Are there any brands out there that maybe without even trying, maybe they stumbled into it, or at least they didn't tell people they were trying? And you can go back 100 years if you want.
Yep.
That kind of accomplished that brand building, business building, and storytelling.
I'll use one that everybody knows, Uber, obviously. Did they stumble upon that, or that was more intentional? I don't know those folks there, nor would I try to pretend. But I think when you start to basically understand an unmet consumer need, and when you're really trying to be disruptive, they obviously disrupted, and you've seen Lyft follow right behind. You look at sort of what Uber, how they've continued to evolve in terms of, the challenges they've had in relation to a lot of the pressure they felt on a state level, on a federal level, and then what they've had to accomplish over the years. It's been pretty exciting to watch. And then you see how they're starting to diversify into other areas. It's really exciting. So I would say, they seem to get it on the surface. Every brand and business has their own challenges in terms of how they're going to evolve today. But I'd say Uber's a good example. They seem to just sort of hit it day in and day out. You look at their evolutionary track and you pay close attention to the conversations they're having with the general public and where they want to go and how they see themselves getting there. It's exciting to watch. Now, did they sort of accidentally fall into that? I don't know if any of those founders really actually thought it would be as big as it is. They probably hope that. But I would say they probably sort of fall in that camp for me on a personal level. I think if you could ask any one of my colleagues at work, they'd have a much more articulate response and probably have 52 different examples of other brands that have done a great job. But I would say for me, Uber sort of stands out.
Yeah. And so, salesmen know when they're being sold to, and marketers know when they're being marketed to. When do you know if, a corporation or a group has kind of hit on all of the things that you focus on and they're not your clients? What's that one telltale sign that they've kind of nailed it?
That's
Basically,
a tough question. Yeah, I would say, delivering a holistic, unfractured experience in market is crucial. And so if they show up, in one place, but look radically different in another, and if you look globally, sort of their message track, I think that's something to pay very close attention to. So their equity, right, is crucial. So understanding their purpose, obviously their mission and their vision is not something that you necessarily market, but their points of difference are. And so, if they back up what they stand for, they're making, so if we're looking at organizations that say, hey, look, we're a cause-driven organization, or, we're a large corporation with $1 billion in assets, but we take a percentage of everything we make and we reinvest it into the communities where we are. That's a really good sign that they're doing something right. That means they value and they share the same values that we have as a small organization, and it makes it easier for us to help move the needle at the top and the bottom. And so for us, that's who we look for. So I think if they're delivering an unfractured experience, if they're a multi-billion-dollar brand and they're delivering an unfractured experience around the globe, obviously that's attractive to us. And we see companies that are doing that day in and day out, especially today. You're seeing more and more companies do that.
Yeah. Last question. This has been fun. So I think a group that usually struggles with a lot of what you guys do, brand building, business building, storytelling, are cities or municipalities or some states or even some countries.
Yep.
But Cincinnati, beautiful city. I've only been to the airport, but you guys have a video on your website that has some really amazing footage.
Yeah.
A lot bigger than I thought,
Yeah.
Downtown and steep banks along the river. Do you guys work with, cities? Because that's unruly compared to, a small business. And if so, like, how do you tackle that big behemoth? Or I guess you've already kind of stated you kind of start small, but if, Cincinnati said, we want you to do everything, where do you start?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's something we've talked about for years. My partner, Dan, who's our chief creative officer, this is a passion point of his. He would probably talk to you about this for days on end. Cincinnati has really become a destination over the years. I say that in a professional sense because there's some really big brands that you probably haven't heard of that are headquartered there. And in one big, large conglomerate is Procter & Gamble. And they've been able to import a ton of talent into the market. They're close to 200, I haven't said it yet, but I'll say it for purposes of this. Like, we try not to define ourselves as an agency, but as a professional firm. But there are close to 200 agencies in Cincinnati. That's a pretty big number. I would venture to say that far greater than half of those agencies do a lot of work with Procter & Gamble, and there's a reason for that. When you're deploying billion-dollar brands across the world, you need thought leadership. And so Cincinnati, there's a ton of history. You think about their strong conservative values. You think about cost of living. You think about someone like a Procter & Gamble, and it's really become a destination. We've seen more and more people move towards Cincinnati because of the access Procter & Gamble gives you. And then what we've seen happen is we've seen that talent then be exported from Procter. And that's, I don't know if that's as intentional as sometimes it feels, but they've got first-class leaders that have exited that organization and then built up other organizations in and around the Cincinnati area, which has just been great. When you think about professional sports in Southern Ohio, there aren't a lot of states that can basically, their claim is now there are 3. And so, you've got this second city mindset in Cincinnati. We're not New York, we're not Los Angeles, we're not Seattle, we're not Austin, but we take a lot of pride in what we've built so far. And so for us to make this a destination, we've got to continue to recruit the next generation of leaders. And we feel like Cincinnati's on the right track to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd love to go visit. And I probably wouldn't have said that without seeing the video that you guys produced, but
that says a lot. Well, we'd love to have you. That's, we've got to, now when we can all come back together and work in the same space, we take a lot of pride in where we work and how we coexist, but obviously you're going to be the first person on the list to fly out and see it. And I'm glad you said that about the video. So that's awesome.
Yeah. I'd love to go to a Reds game and do like a historical tour there, because there's a lot to go on, or a lot that's gone on. All right. Well, cool.
Thanks,
thank you so much, Colin. Appreciate your time and look forward to having you guys here in the local ecosystem in Utah.
Thanks, Garrett. Appreciate it.